Imagine, if you would, walking through a desert. Your mouth is dry, your joints ache, and your eyes are bloodshot. Water is a luxury you cannot afford. You walk and walk until your bones feel brittle. And just before you drop, there it is. An oasis of water and lush trees. You're saved. Finally, you have access to this vital necessity. For the first time, you feel satisfied and, dare I say, happy. After a few days, you think to yourself, how could I ever leave? Why would I ever leave? It feels so nice here. But this is all there is. Salvation lies beyond the horizon. But why would you ever brave the desert again if you didn't know there was another oasis around the bend? We think like this all the time. We go with what is safe, reliable. And honestly, I can't even fault people who live like this. This is the story of a forgettable little bluebird. His name was... well, anyway, he lived his life inside the safety of an oasis. An image of superiority. Today, we'll talk about the oasis and how devilishly enticing it is to remain within. This is a story of a boy named Burpee. Hello again, people, and welcome to my character analysis of the forgettable little bluebird, also known as Berdly. If you've been watching my content for a while, you may have the idea that I hate this little guy. So I don't hate him, right? He's a video game character, first of all, and on top of that, he's just a kid who may or may not be buckling under the weight of expectations. I don't hate him. But I can't say he's one of my favorite characters, so this analysis was a bit of a challenge for me. You would probably think this bird was one of my favorite characters, considering, well, first of all, that's racist. And secondly, I don't like the way he talks about Noel. I wanted to preface this by saying that I will be fair, but just know there are reasons why I waited so long to do this. Several reasons, mind you. For starters, other YouTubers have done videos on him better than I ever could. In fact, here's two amazing videos right here. One by Stuffed Alpaca and the other by Dorked. Both fantastic and thoughtful videos. I watched these and I was just like, well, that's it. We have achieved peak bird character analysis. Why would I spend time trying to reinvent the wheel? Seriously, go watch them. I will get into the analysis soon, but I think I should also preface this video by just clearing the air a bit with the overall community's response to Boopy in general. So why do people not like a character like this when the likes of Undyne and Flowey are generally liked? These two characters have clearly done worse things, and after they were given the chance to calm down a bit, they became well loved. Now this could simply be because we are in the middle of Deltarune's development. If UNDERTALE released the same way, right now we would be at the point where Undyne chases us through Waterfall. If you stopped playing UNDERTALE halfway through, you would probably hate Undyne just as much, if not more, than Berdly. Honestly, I think this is what's working against him the most. He's not necessarily a main character, so he doesn't get as much screen time compared to the others. Characters we already know and love clash with him on the regular. His superiority complex typically involves him talking down to people we like, and finally his "it was all a dream" narrative has made it very difficult to gauge how much of his arc from Chapter 2 has stuck around, but we'll get to that. Bimpy is not the most guilty of characters. His actions are not necessarily excused away as much they are explained, after a long time of displaying his flaws. It's exactly as the Queen states, there's nothing wrong with him, he's just annoying. So, is being annoying really all someone has to do to get put on the chopping block? No, I don't think that's the case. Alphys, in some respects, could be seen as a quote-unquote annoying character, with her constant instant messaging in UNDERTALE, but people love her just fine. I should clarify, Bentley is not universally disliked. He had plenty of fans even as far back as Chapter 1. Several people enjoy him the same way I enjoy Susie. So why is there still a considerable portion of the community that just doesn't vibe with him? Let's use Susie as a reference to see if we can discern an answer. I mentioned this in the past. When introduced to Susie, I didn't like her. This was back in Chapter 1 days, mind you. I thought her caustic personality made her a liability more than anything. And technically she was a liability if you were going full pacifist. So what made Susie work for me before Berdly did? I think the fact that his behavior is explained very late into knowing him is the biggest reason why people have trouble warming up to him. Susie and Bob actually have very similar character flaws when you think about it. They are both putting up this act as a means to make themselves feel safe. Susie has her bully persona to scare people away, while Bob has his smart guy persona to stop people from questioning his actual intelligence. These are both fronts which eventually are peeled back. However, the main difference is that Susie's is peeled back much sooner. Right when you get to the supply closet, you see her start to sweat. She is stunned and very uneasy. The facade is falling, and we see that behind that manic jaw is a scared girl. When it comes to Berdly, we have at least 6 hours of him keeping up this facade, and coincidentally, it takes Susie to finally get him to admit he's wrong. So now what you're probably going to say is, wait, Berdly also showed signs that he wasn't very smart before this scene. To that, I would refer you to the idea of first impressions. The impression you give off, or that of which another person gives off upon first interaction. When you meet another person for the first time, you have roughly a few seconds to a minute, and that's it. This person has established an impression of you, and depending on how much you see each other after the fact, that impression will stay. Now, that impression isn't the end-all be-all of how they see you, but it does affect the relationship going forward. We get maybe 2 lines of dialogue from Berdly, and then we're off to explore the Chapter 1 Dark World. That small bit of time is only reinforced when we meet him again in the epilogue. Now, of course, here comes the obligatory Nighthawk disclaimer: I am not an expert in psychology, human or avian, so do not take anything I say as fact. This is why I think he had more trouble gaining a following compared to characters like Susie. His moments of being reasonable are few and far in between, and when he gets to the point where he explains himself, the player has already formed an opinion of him hours ago. I can't really say it's necessarily a flaw in the writing, it's just psychological. The persona he formed was just a little bit too convincing. To all the Bimbop fans who will inevitably click on this video, I just want you to know that while I may have slandered the Bluebird in the past, if I gave you the impression that I hated him, I am sorry. So now, with all that out of the way, let's get right into the weeds of this, and talk about his relationship with Nelnal. I feel like talking about this dynamic chronologically in-game is not very efficient. If I were to recount the events as presented in-game, this would front-load a lot of the negatives and leave the explanation for last. As we just discussed, this paints Berdly in a bad light. Instead, I think the best place to start would be right where the dynamic began, the root of the problem, if you will. The spelling bee explains both Nelnal and Bookie's side of the relationship. Let's start with Nelnal. So, I have no idea why December of all words was chosen for the spelling bee, especially considering the words before it were smart and genius, which had nothing to do with a month of the year. I'm assuming this was a hometown-hosted event, as in the citizens of hometown created and chose the words for the competition. December was the mayor's daughter, and you would think this would be one of those words that could have been chosen randomly, but if it was, it should have definitely been removed considering her disappearance. This could all just be a random coincidence, but I'm getting off task. So, Nelnal lost her sister, which was devastating for her, her family, and everyone else who knew her. It seems like this event was so traumatic that there are specific parts of her memory that have been repressed. In the weird route and the normal route, she mentions this feeling of nostalgia that she gets sometimes. The fact that she collapsed is more than a clear sign of trauma, and it seems to have left a lasting residue on her psyche. So, whenever a traumatic event befalls someone, it can affect how you live your life after the fact. For example, if you survived a hellish war zone, you may flinch every time you hear fireworks, and no longer celebrate any holidays that feature them. One thing that people tend to be very good at is surviving. We have natural defense mechanisms to allow us to evade danger. Noelle in particular has been cited to freeze up in certain scenarios, obviously a nod to the term deer in headlights. To put it simply, if you survive a traumatic event where you survived a dangerous situation, you may be extra cautious from then on. This includes all aspects of your life. This may sound like a normal and obvious step, but it's not always that simple. Sometimes this pursuit of safety can be taken to the extreme. To maintain a feeling of safety, you may be pushed to do something that hinders you in the short term as long as it makes you feel safe overall. For example, Noelle cites that he was always nice to her when they were alone. Benjamin wasn't the most attentive friend, but he was safe. He wouldn't scare her or pull pranks like Chris. Think about Noelle's friendship with Chris and how it was also cited to fall apart after December's disappearance. With Chris drifting away, Noelle probably needed another friend to latch onto. This relationship forming the way it did makes even more sense when you take into account Noelle's reluctance to spend time at home. Noelle was clearly avoiding her mother. Studying with Berdly gave Noelle a prime excuse to spend time away from her. This setup wasn't ideal, but it was safe, and that's why I think it persisted for so long. Noelle thought that Burpee was her friend, and while he absolutely was, she was okay with ignoring the more codependent aspects because it made her feel safe. Now, let's talk about Barney. His opinion of Noelle feels very possessive at times. To those of you who disagree, during his fight in Chapter 2, and I quote, "So now you think it's your chance to usurp me at my weakest, by taking my most precious thing, Noelle." Yeah, that's probably one of the worst things Berdly ever said. No, but seriously, this is not a good look, but it does emphasize how much Berdly values Noelle. So why is he so focused on being perceived as superior? This topic feels a little weird for me to talk about considering I'm a content creator now. I get a lot of attention from a lot of different sources. Nowadays, I can't really comment, but from past experience, I know what it feels like to be ignored. I know what it feels like to not get the attention you need. People criticize Benjamin for the way he acts, but the thing that I don't think people understand is that behavior is often learned, especially when you're talking about children. I think it's very telling that we haven't seen Baxter's parents yet. People talk about Noelle avoiding her mother, but they forget that Bertrude volunteers at multiple places. The library and with Miss Boom. He could very well be avoiding his own parents just the same, or even the other way around. Behavior is often a result of your environment. Noelle has an overbearing mother, so she struggles to stand up for herself. This bluebird is constantly working to make himself feel superior or to make himself stand out. Until we get confirmation, this is purely an assumption, but he may get little to no attention from his parents, which could very well be why he is so hungry for the attention of others. If this were true, it would also explain why he's so confused when it comes to affection. He misinterprets Noelle being nice to him as romantic advances. On the surface, this may paint him as a narcissist, but actually it could just be he's not used to getting attention in general. I return to the desert allegory from earlier. If you go your entire life being ignored or disregarded, typically it either makes you desperate for attention or bitter. We see examples of both when it comes to his relationship with Chris. If you check him in his fight, the flavor text reads that he only gets this angry when you play games together. Chris and Berdly have a lesser-known previous history of playing games together. This flavor text and one of the posts from the Spamton sweepstakes tells a story of Chris and Berdly spending time together. It seems despite how he treats them, Chris is more than willing to spend time with him. By the looks of it, he isn't the best at playing video games, so it leads him to try harder and harder to try and beat Chris. Perhaps the reason he talked down to Chris on many occasions would be that Chris has proven time and time again to be better than him at most things. This could be why Berdly seems so antagonistic towards Chris. He is constantly seeking that validation from them, and as we probably guessed, that isn't going to happen. I mean, Chris probably feels sorry for him, but I'm not sure they're willing to let him win. Or who knows, maybe they would. I'm not sure, honestly. So, Berdly is forgettable. He feels like he's not making an impression, and suddenly he wins a competition that he may have had an interest in. As shallow as it may seem, sometimes people just need a little external validation. Nothing wrong with that. When he received this external validation, he felt nice. People actually appreciated his presence. His name was spoken and remembered for the first time. This attention gave Boopy a wonderful feeling, but it was fleeting. It was just one spelling bee after all, and now the fear is starting to set in. If people don't talk about you anymore, then they will forget your name. If they forget your name, then they'll probably forget about you next. The feeling of recognition was amazing, so you don't want to let it go. So you come up with a plan. If you can convince everyone around you that you're smart, then you'll keep getting attention. Because, well, this is how the world works, right? No one would ever just be nice to you because, in this world, if you want people to be nice to you, then you better perform. Do the things that other people want. That's the reason. That's the only reason why someone would spend time with you. Obviously. So, you need to be smart. The thing is, our little bluebird isn't really that smart, so he needs help. After you win the spelling bee, which you totally won fair and square, that nervous girl decided to come over and congratulate you on a job well done. Maybe the two of you talked a little bit after the competition, and you let slip that you had trouble with your homework. And then she offers to help you, so you get the idea that maybe she likes you a little bit. Because obviously, as we've learned, there is no other reason. After winning such an important competition, she obviously wants to go out with you. Why else would she be nice to you? And so, it began. This event was the catalyst of their relationship. In a way, they needed each other. But you would be hard-pressed calling this arrangement healthy. A bond like this is only as strong as its base. And much like the cyber world itself, we see there are underlying issues yet to be addressed. Say what you will about him, Barkley was not fully on board with the Queen's plan. He was aware that the Queen wanted world domination, but he also thought the world would be ruled by the three of them. This is one of the more blatant examples of fantasy clouding a person's better judgment in this game. Yet, there is a little bit more to it than that. Throughout Chapter 2, Queen tells of a process where she will turn Noelle's face into a robot one. This is an oversimplification for comedic effect, but this fate is very grim as you probably guessed. So grim that even Bippy picks up on it. In a line that is sort of easy to miss, it seems like they struck a deal. Queen did not ask him to join. She demanded his cooperation just like every single other Darkner we've met. In exchange for not harming Noelle's face whatsoever, he would go along with the Queen's plan. The Queen clearly has an agenda to carry out, and with her monarch knows best attitude, she can't see how her actions are hurting the people she claims to care about. We'll get to the Queen in good time, but out of everything, it's clear that Bursty cared for Noelle beyond more than just the merit of being his favorite thing. During his fight, you can tell Noelle to play smart. He enjoys watching Noelle show how smart she is. Before the fight, he seems to think that Chris is the one forcing Noelle to their side. Naturally, this is one of the many examples where he displays his inability to read the room, but his actions explain that he means well. Despite how it may seem, he does have good intentions and he wants Noelle to be happy. He just doesn't understand that Noelle's happiness and his happiness do not always intersect. The weird route, above everything, displays how virtuous he can be, which is a shame considering it almost seems like he's punished for it. This is one of the rare occasions where Berdly locks in and gets serious. Before, there was this grandiose level of theatrics to make him seem like a hero. And when it seems like Noelle is in genuine danger, the theatrics go away and all he cares about is getting Noelle to safety. In the normal route, when the mask finally falls, Berdly admits that he wasn't that smart to begin with, hence using Noelle to boost his grades. He laments on what his life would look like with Noelle not being a part of it. The way in which he describes his situation is very telling to me. He interprets the feeling he got when winning the spelling bee as being smart. while in actuality, this is what it feels like to get attention, positive reinforcement. Just like so many times in the past, he misinterprets the situation. He believes that being smart is what will make people like you. The codependency of this arrangement has now become a hindrance. If Noelle ever leaves him, then he is nothing. He's no one. He's the forgettable little bluebird again. The Dark Worlds seem to play into people's insecurities by way of giving people something they think they want. Even he knows that this setup can never last forever. The Dark Worlds, by their very nature, can make your fantasies come to life, and that is what drew him in. The idea of a world for both of them. A place where he would be smart, forever, with Noelle at his side. Lancer and Susie affirm that being smart isn't something they care about. Unfortunately, this scene is also played for laughs, albeit a little less so, as, once again, he believes that Susie is now an exception to the rule. He thinks that Susie specifically is saying that she would accept him even if he wasn't smart. While this is technically what she is saying, he still has this idea that people wouldn't like him just because he is who he is. Bardvark's behavior is made to mirror the Queen. As you probably guessed, this isn't an accident. They both form truces to find Noelle. They're equally oblivious in their search for Noelle too. They both bake a battery acid pie, and of course they both ignore Noelle's voice, and think she cannot make her own decisions. Like I said before, behavior is learned, and it's really hard not to see Queen as a stand-in for Beverly's mom, just as much as Noelle. I try not to fall into the pit of Queen is everyone's mom, but it genuinely fits here. He is constantly seeking approval from her, which is ignored. In his haste to get that approval, he allows himself to be tricked at the expense of Noelle. Following his capture, he works against Queen to save Noelle at all costs, acting as an important player in the Queen's defeat. If you defeat Queen with violence, he even goes as far as harming himself to make sure she loses. Finally, when Queen is defeated, he seeks to make a new Dark World, this time making it for everyone, rather than just him and Noelle. No tyrannical Queen, no player 2, no more rules. A genuinely perfect world for Noelle so she can be happy. After seeing what happens in Chapter 4, I'd say it's a good thing that Rouse stops him. From here, Bellissimo will mellow out. He no longer fuels the facade. He has finally decided to leave the Oasis, and from here on he will respect Noelle and listen to her. Nevermore will he Just kidding. It was all a dream. Time to get back to working on our project, Noelle, my precious little player 2. Okay, so let's talk about the fallout from Chapter 2, or rather, the lack thereof. A good bit of people, myself included, have come away dissatisfied when it comes to his character. While this is not a full regression, I would argue that the choice of making him and Noelle believe that everything that happened was a dream has caused the story to suffer. Now, there is always the possibility that the Dark Worlds will be revealed to everyone, the two then realize that everything wasn't a dream, and all of that progress could potentially return. Honestly, I really don't like that idea either. There is obviously a reason why Toby has decided to do this. I would hope the reason is pretty damn good considering, but I don't like the idea of characters swapping back and forth between mentalities. I understand that people are who they are because of their thoughts and experiences and all that. What is a person if not their memories? I get it, but you see why I'm kind of annoyed, right? The next time we hear from Bebe de Mimbo, he's asking Noelle to be his player 2 once again, at the festival. Looking back at my initial playthrough of Chapter 4, I was genuinely heartbroken. Sure, I'd be glad to— What? No, don't go to the festival with Berdly. Tell him no, bad ending, no, be your player 2, no. It was like I was watching a train crash in real time. Like I said, this is not a full regression. He's a little bit more mellow now. When Susie and Chris appear in the library during his volunteer work, he looks genuinely concerned. And when Susie says they're about to leave, he looks almost confused. Like he is clearly interested in talking with them some more, and the prospect of being alone is not something he likes. The facade is alive and well, he's just not doing as good of a job at hiding it. If you talk to him again, he references how Susie is being so tsundere. as he still thinks that Susie likes him somehow. The fate of this little bird is in the player's hands. If you defeat Queen with violence, his arm is now damaged, and that damage now persists into the light world. Noelle is heavily implied to come visit him, and she left him a single flower as a gift. As before, he determines this to be an act of romantic intent. The progression of Berdly is, dare I say, confused. This is probably the most twisted character Toby has ever written. Not like dark twisted, just like racetrack sort of twisted. This isn't necessarily a critique of the writing, at least for now. Deltarune isn't finished yet, so it would be a little unfair to judge the writing of a character when there is still more writing to be had. What I will say is, if this was all there was, and we never saw much of him again, this would be pretty unsatisfying. He goes through this entire journey making mistake after mistake, to then realize the fault of his actions and turn a new leaf. Following all of this, he is then lied to, and because of this lie, he now thinks almost identically from where his journey began. Thankfully, I know there's more to the story, so we can absolutely assume there is more to come. This bird, at least for me, admittedly, is a tough character to crack. Some people love him, others don't really like him too much. After ruminating over his many proceeds for the past few days, I think I understand him a lot more, and that's all I can ever hope for. At his core, I just think he was a kid starved for attention, and once he received it, he flailed. He jumped, he raised his voice, just to keep the attention as much as he could. Oftentimes, it can feel like your worth is tied to how useful you are, and I think that's what he felt. He just wanted to be loved, to be valued, and he felt the need to differentiate himself from the group to do so. But when the chips are down, and the people he cares about are in danger, he'll come running. This little bluebird. What was his name again? Oh right, Berdly. His name was Berdly. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye. I would like to thank all of the Nighthawk channel members. Thank you Lilico. Thank you Bleed4MBG. Thank you Vantum. Thank you Kiriyami. Thank you Avast Antivirus. Thank you Savvy Sillybug. Thank you Gaston Zumbo. Thank you LJ Afton. Thank you Fluby. Thank you Heboi. Thank you Mine. Thank you Iceburger. Thank you J-Dog the Jester. Thank you The Night Homie. Thank you Subathiru. Thank you Zelt. Thank you Lucas. Thank you Lumen Scented. Thank you Holocohesi. Thank you Starlight. Thank you The True Duality. Thank you Cappy Cappy. Thank you Gussie Awesome. Thank you Sazaimon. Thank you Calypso Love. Thank you Braheim. Thank you Pagochi. Thank you Death the Kid. Thank you Angry Freddy. Thank you Abthormal. Thank you Jeddirk. Thank you James Bryan. Thank you Timac. Thank you D Money. Thank you Ada's Outside. Thank you Iru Pop. Thank you Norkbork. Thank you Unfolding Space. Thank you all so much.